Hello everybody, I'm PhenomSage, and welcome back to another Made in Abyss chapter review. Today we're going to be talking about Chapter 30, Unexpected Crisis. Now, I admit I had intended to try and react to 30 and 31 and do reviews for both this week, because somebody had told me, actually a few people told me, that these two chapters, 30 and 31, actually go well together and are better read together. Unfortunately, I just did not have the time today to react to both of those chapters and start working on reviews for both of them, so it'll be a single chapter this week. 31 will be next week. I apologize for that. But in my defense, I would say that the end of this chapter ends in a way that I don't feel like I need to immediately go to the next chapter. I mean, it definitely has that cliffhanger aspect where it's like, oh my god, what happens next? But I don't really feel like it was an awkward cut where I think I need the next chapter right now. So that's how it's going to be for this week. Hope you guys don't mind that. But let's just get into this chapter. Chapter 30, Unexpected Crisis. There's a lot to talk about. I mean, if I decided to review 30 and 31 together, it would have been a long video, because just in this one chapter alone, there was so much to discuss. If you look in the reaction, you'll notice that this reaction to this chapter is longer than some of my other chapter reactions, just because there was so much I was trying to dissect and figure out what's going on. The highlight of this chapter has to be Nanachi and her dialogue with Bondrewd. And there's a lot to talk about here, but I just want to start right off the bat with just Nanachi's loyalty, her caring, her kindness towards Reg and Rico. For some reason, I have no idea why, but for some reason, Bondrewd wants Nanachi to join him again. To join him and start working under him again, probably helping him with his experiments. I don't know why he needs Nanachi or why he wants Nanachi, other than the fact that she's a cute bunny and Bondrewd clearly is fond of her. But he wants her to join him again, and she agrees. But with some conditions. And this is where the emotion starts setting in. Nanachi wants Bondrewd to leave Reg and Rico alone and let them go on to the 6th layer. And I called this last chapter. I said that she would do something like this. She was clearly indicating something like that last chapter when she was thinking in bed. She was like, how can I get these guys out of here? She was already planning on sacrificing herself so that way Reg and Rico could go on to the next layer. And that really does speak volumes for the relationship that they've already formed together. I'm sure Nanachi already thinks she owes Reg this just because he helped kill Mitty. But I'm sure that they've only continued developing that bond, that she is just willing to do this for them. And I love the details in the paneling where you can see her close to bursting out in tears. You see it watering up all over her eyes. She's clearly incredibly distraught right now. Akihito just does such a good job of displaying emotion. So that was definitely the highlight for me, just seeing Nanachi give herself up, or try to give herself up, so that way Reg and Rico could go on their own. We get a lot more in this talk with Bondrewd besides Nanachi trying to give herself up. We also learn very important information about the current whereabouts of the other two white whistles that we had heard about. These were told to us a while ago about Sraho, the Lord of Mystery, and Wakuna, the Lord of Guidance. We knew about these characters, and we were told that they were on the 5th layer with Bondrewd, but now we have very, very crucial information that will definitely affect the future of this story and where we go from here. We now know that Wakuna and Sraho are both on the 6th layer. Both descended without notice from Bondrewd or anybody else. How he knows that they're down there now, if he didn't notice, I don't know, but they went down and he knows. One piece of interesting information that we get is that Wakuna, the Lord of Guidance, not only is an old man. That's interesting because we don't know these other two white whistles, their age, their origins, etc, etc. We know Wakuna is an old man now, and we know that to get into the 6th layer, he used his personal relic to invade into it. Now, this tells me a few things. For one, he didn't use the altar in Edofront. He went down the Sea of Corpses itself. That's what that tells me. And due to his white whistle being the shape of a dolphin, his name being Wakuna, and them saying that he used his personal relic to descend into the sea of corpses, I would imagine he has some kind of submarine thing. Maybe not a submarine, but something that he used, something that allows him to swim or dive into the sea of corpses without being harmed by the creatures that are in it. Because even for a white whistle, we hear that diving into the sea of corpses with all the creatures that are in there is synonymous to suicide. During the reaction, I made a note that I said I had this theory that Bondrewd did something to the other white whistles, but I am so glad that is not the case, because it means we will most certainly be seeing these two individuals on the 6th layer when we get there. So I am very happy about that. I am very happy that we are going to see more white whistles in the future, and that just gets me excited that we're going down into the 6th layer. I'm wondering what in-game role some of these white whistles might have. Maybe Wakuna or Sraho might be an end-game villain that we descend and see on the 7th, or even, like, God forbid, we get to the 8th layer and see what's down at the bottom. I wonder if one of these white whistles is going to follow us. It's also interesting to think about where they stand on the moral compass. When Ozan was warning us about the white whistles, the only one she warned us about was Bondrewd. So could these white whistles be good guys? They both don't look like good guys, but you never know. For some reason, Wakuna being an old man makes me think that he might be a guide for us in the future, or an ally, which would be a really cool turn of events. Backing up a bit to the beginning of this chapter, last chapter, you'll remember that it kind of ended on a cliffhanger. Riko was alone. She was stranded in a dark place. It turned out to just be the room, but they made the background dark to make it more dramatic. But she was alone, and I said it was a fake cliffhanger. Even in the reaction, I still stuck with that. I thought it was a fake cliffhanger, but it's not. Riko is alone, bad things are happening, and she wants to find Riko and Reg. But she looks around and notices that all of the doors are locked. Due to all of these doors being locked, she finds that the only way that she can go is up the stairs that Prushka had previously mentioned. If you go up those, you will suffer the curse of the abyss. And Riko, being as impatient and ignorant as she is, decides that this is the only option. She has to go up these stairs and find Reg and Nanachi. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting heavy 3rd layer vibes in the anime. Sure, it was anime original, but this just ties perfectly back into that. Riko is just such an impatient person. She can't wait until everything resolves itself, until they find their way back. Except in this case, it makes a lot more sense because Reg didn't just tell her, hey, I'll be back in 5 minutes. This time she doesn't know where they are, so at least it makes a lot more sense in this instance. But if I was her, I still would have waited just a little bit. Like, you still don't know if climbing up those stairs is your only option left. And I get that she was scared about what Bondrewd could be doing to them at that moment, but to willingly put yourself up to the 5th layer's curse without any knowledge of what's going on immediately is a little bit dumb to me. But at least it makes a lot more sense than the 3rd layer, where she could have waited 2 hours and avoided all of that nonsense. But we're out of that. That's not a problem anymore. It's just funny. But I do like that this creates a consistency in her character, where Riko is very impatient. It's not like that was against her character. Like, now we see that she is like this in the canon. And this is where we get our first glimpse into what the curse of the 5th layer does. And I really liked what they did with all of the effects of the 5th layer. I can't remember if I said it in my episode review back when we found out all the effects of each layer, but when I heard the 4th layer was bleeding from every orifice, and then I go down to the 5th layer and it's self-harm and sensory loss, it kind of felt underwhelming. It was like, wait, so we went from blood out of every orifice to just losing all senses? That's not so bad. What is this? But in this chapter, we truly get our first look into the terror of unawareness. And I really like the way Prushka put it. All the effects of the 5th layer are so dangerous because you're not aware that they're even happening. Riko suffers pretty heavily during this ascent up the stairs, where she's losing teeth, she's getting huge gashes in her arm, her face. And side note, but I still don't know what caused that. I'm sure we're going to find out next chapter what it was that caused these cuts in Riko while she was ascending the stairs. But she didn't even feel them, so she had no desire to protect herself. And as far as I know, we didn't get into these self-harm effect of the curse just yet. Sure, Rico bit down on her teeth so hard that she broke them, but I don't think that's what they meant by self-harm. I think they meant self-harm as in you actually want to hurt yourself. Either way, it wasn't a pleasant experience for Rico, and I really love the way that they conveyed visuals in this scene to show Rico losing her senses. You slowly see Rico in this void just disappear, melt away, to communicate that she is losing all sense of what's going on around her, and that's just a really smart way of showing it. I like that it was that and not we just see her climbing up the stairs and she's not understanding what's going on. Like, we actually see a representation of what's going on inside of her head. But yeah, I think I just have a much bigger appreciation for this layer's curse than I did when I first heard it, just because I love the way that Prushka talks about it. I can't say that enough. I love the way that all of the curse effects on this layer come from unawareness. Speaking of Prushka, we actually learn an interesting detail about her character, or not really her character, but just her life. She has a pet bird, bunny thingy living in her hat or her hair, and she calls it Mania or Mania. I think it's Mania just because of the E and the I, but tell me if I'm wrong. Well, I don't know how you would know I'm wrong because I don't think there's been any official word, but still, I think I'm just gonna call it Mania. With this bird creature, we actually learn an interesting detail about the Abyss, or in particular, this layer of the Abyss. The 5th layer's curse does not affect animals, but the thing is, I don't know if the previous layer's curses ever affected animals either. I can't say for certain. I don't think it's exclusive to this 5th layer though. I think just animals and the creatures of the Abyss don't care about the curse. We know that the Orbed Piercer used the curse to predict the future of people's movements, but I don't think it was ever affected by the curse. It can just see how other people move around it. Either way, the Prushka information does not stop there. Bondrewd confirms what I've had a sneaking suspicion about this entire time, and that is the relationship between himself and Prushka. Is she actually his daughter? What's going on here? How did Bondrewd even have the time to make a child down here? And we find out they're not blood related, so that all makes complete sense now. He probably took her from another kingdom, brought her down to the Abyss, and took a liking to her and let her stick around. And I really like this speech that he gives to Nanachi about Prushka and their relationship. Even though that they're not related by blood, love is what connects them as family. And of course, I'm sure Bondrewd has just a really twisted sense of love, but it's so weird and yet cool hearing him talk about things like love and family when so far he's just been such a villainous and evil character. It's hard to believe that he even cares about stuff like that. And of course, we get a line with Prushka saying he's the best dad ever. So isn't that just wonderful? At the end of the chapter, after Nanachi has requested from Bondrewd to let Rico and Reg descend into the 6th layer and leave them alone in exchange for her working for him again, Bondrewd follows up by saying, "Oh, I must apologize for that." And as I expected, Bondrewd is not going to let Reg alone. He is clearly a very vital source of information about the Abyss and how to survive the curse just because of what Reg is made out of. How Liza was able to bring him up in the first place, I don't know. Maybe Bondrewd has met Reg before through Liza, but couldn't do anything because Liza was there. Honestly, in a fight, I'm pretty sure Liza could take Bondrewd. But we see that Reg is tied up. He's mounted to a chair, and you see all of the praying hands around him inspecting him, trying to get all the information and data that they can. And for some reason, Reg isn't able to move or talk. I mean, not moving makes sense because he's chained down, but for some reason he's not able to talk either. That is so weird. I don't know what they did to him to make it so he can't talk, but you see them doing a lot of things. And the interesting thing is that the way the praying hands talk, it's not like the way the praying hand talked on the 4th layer that we met before. They sound almost animal-like, the way that they repeat things over and over, and it's very strange. I'm wondering what's going on with these praying hands right now, but I'm sure we'll find out in the future. But by the very last panel, we hear, "Let's use the light, let's use it," and they apparently use it because Reg's expression just changes in an instant. This isn't like Rico. He can still probably feel the pain of whatever's going on. And in the very last panel we see, they cut off Reg's hand. and there is blood. You can see the flesh. So it's clear Reg wasn't just a robot. He had skin, he had blood, he had flesh. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I don't know if there's any way that they can reattach that. I don't think so. I think Reg doesn't have his right hand anymore. The interesting thing is that whenever Reg used the incinerator before, I think he always used his right hand. Now, I don't think that he's limited to his right hand. I think he could use his left hand for the incinerator as well. But is Reg right-handed? Either way, it doesn't even matter. This is a huge limitation on Reg's abilities now. Just being able to stretch his arm made the descent so much easier, and now he doesn't have one hand to be able to do that. It's going to be really interesting to see where they take Reg's character now that he's missing his right hand. And I'm really interested to read the next chapter next week and see what you guys meant by, oh, this goes well with chapter 30. I'm looking forward to seeing that, even if I didn't end up reading those two together. But that's been all from me for this week's chapter review of Made in Abyss. Thank you guys for watching. Again, I'm sorry that I didn't end up doing that double chapter reaction / review. Trust me, when the time comes and I have to do those sort of things and read these chapters together, I will, I promise. But as for right now, that will be it. Thank you guys for all the support, and as always, have a great day.